I and many other people have been and witnessed the Las Vegas trials with Navarro. We've seen her blatant bias, her blatant attacks on the Constitution. I heard it with my own ears. I couldn't even believe it. I had to pinch myself. Was I really hearing this correctly? She says, the First Amendment and Second Amendment will not be allowed to be discussed in her court. Okay. So here's my question to you. People like Navarro, and it's not just Navarro, it's like you said, it's pervasive throughout the land. This whole idea that, we no longer have the Bill of Rights. And one example is the Bail Reform Act that took away the right to bail and gave the judge the discretion to throw somebody in pretrial prison. That's a big one right there. Speedy trial has been pretty much destroyed and undermined. So we have all these different examples, and we're seeing it actually play out with the Bundys and their defendants. What are they doing wrong? What would you do differently that they're not doing in order to get back those basic Bill of Rights?
First of all, I would not hire an attorney.
Okay.
They're working with attorneys who are officers of the court who does exactly right. Look, at that judge needs a writ of error. That judge needs to be pulled on the carpet. Right, immediately those things.
Look, that judge should be indicted, and we intend on indicting that judge. We are bringing that case. We are bringing that case to right here up into the northern New York federal court here, because this is part of the subversion.
She's blatantly committed treason, and I can say that because there's no doubt, because she's got every different element of that in there. So they don't know what to do because they're sitting there wringing their hands because they don't know the Constitution. They don't know the Bill of Rights. These lawyers know the procedure that they gave them, which is outside of anything that brings us even to the common law. It brings us away from. And so, yeah, of course, you get this business, just like Obama. He's supposed to be a constitutional expert, this guy that completely ignores the Constitution and the Congress and the separation of powers. Yeah, he's an expert. He knows just what he shouldn't be doing, and he does that, and the people stand there and they let him get away with it. And make no mistake about it, Navarro's getting away with it because they're letting her get away with it. Where are the people screaming that she's committing treason? Where are the people calling up and filing charges on her, making complaints that she's completely routing? Now they feel comfortable doing what they're doing because they don't live to an oath. They join an association of judges, which comes right out of the UN. It's an international association, and that's who the judges are keeping to. They are not keeping to an oath of office. Many of them don't even have an oath to the Constitution. And when they're in those courts, they feel like they've contracted with you outside of the Constitution, and they've got them believing this fiction that it's okay because you pled in their court, you did this, you did that. See, when we go into the court, we go, oh no, we're doing an Article 3 constitutional court. The judge is a magistrate. We spell it all out. And the minute they step away from that, we go, I object. And I don't care if she does, whether they acknowledge our objection, it has to go on the record, because when you do a timely objection, it goes on the record. Yeah. Then what you do is you leave and you put a piece of paper in. Now, you see, we have a perfect opportunity right now because the people, we're doing exactly what the communist Van Jones told his people to do to take over this country and bring us into communism, which was, we got to bring the bottom up and the top down. Well, guess what? Donald Trump is bringing the top down in a good way, and we're bringing the bottom up. We're using the Van Jones theory to take this country back. And that's
the key. The key thing to this whole thing is taking control of a court. Okay, we have control of a court here in New York. Whether we're getting the process to go forward is another question. But at some point, that bubble has got to burst because they can't continue to break the law. Okay, Donald Trump said there'll be no peace unless there are those who will enforce the peace. Okay, and he was speaking about the military. And we've taken that in our letter to Jeff Sessions, in which we copied the president, using his words, where we said there can be no law unless there are those who are willing to enforce the law. And so we are looking for someone who is willing to enforce the law. There are some of them people out there, and there's some prosecutors out there. And at some point in time, we'll get one of those people to pick up the slack for this situation and move the process forward. But look, this is up to the Attorney General. The Attorney General recently asked Donald Trump whether he would want his resignation or not. And some of this kind of looks like, because of some things that are going on with that ex FBI director who just what was his name again? That just went up to Congress. Comey, right? So it may be for that something going on there, but also the timing of our letter, the timing of our paperwork is now. It may be he's asked also because he doesn't want to deal with what we're bringing up before him, because he's going to have to go up against the powers that be, and he knows who the powers that be are, and he understands what they can do and the dangers that he's in. So he's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and he's been playing ball probably all his life. After all, he's a bar attorney. He's an ex-prosecutor. He's also, I think was a senator or a congressman. So I think he was a senator, but he's into politics. He knows the game. He knows what's going on. But what we're looking for is someone who is going to step up and enforce the law. We will find a president is willing to do it, but it's going to take a prosecutor, and it's going to take the Attorney General either giving us a special prosecutor to take care of this process, and working with other U.S. Attorneys who are prosecutors to lead that group to do what has to be done in the courts. One of the key things, again, like I said, we control the court at this point. We've kind of tied the magistrate up. He understands he can't make a decision. He is a traffic cop. He is an administrator. He's to move the process on. That's his job. The decision is up to the people with it, which is the trial jury. You go into the Constitution. The Constitution is very clear. You go to the Seventh Amendment, where it talks about in suits of common law, the right of the trial jury shall be preserved. And that no fact of the jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court, but according to the rules of the common law. You cannot overturn the decision of a jury, a trial jury. They've been getting away with having what's called a hung jury. Look at the bottom line.
Right.
These 12 people
Right.
are given a job to go in and make a decision. And they have to make that decision. If I was the judge and I would apply the rules of the common law, and they came out and said, well, we can't make a decision, well, go back in that room until you do make a decision. And I don't care if you're there a week, a month, or a year. You're going to stay there till you make a decision. And the decision may be is we are hung and we can't go forward. So one person can hang up a jury, and they got to come out and say, hey, not guilty. We got to let them go. They got to agree on that, because they can't agree that, in other words, right now, there would be at this point a doubt, because someone is saying no, not guilty.
And there's
So
no double
they have
jeopardy with that, too.
that jury, there's no such thing. Yeah, right. When they come in with another jury, that's double jeopardy. Here a man is being
Absolutely.
tried twice by
Absolutely.
the same thing. So you see, but we've got paperwork that they are unable to respond to. These people were taught by the bar, and the last thing they were taught was Constitution. They don't know anything about the Constitution. They don't know anything about, it seems, about our history of our country, our founding fathers. And we bring this stuff into the court. And when we bring the words of Jefferson, we bring the decisions of the United States Supreme Court into the court, they can't respond. So they always default. They always try to send a letter to the judge to try to have us removed for no standing without even going into the court, making a court record. And they get away with it in the courts that they control. But they don't control this court at this point in time. We're not going to let them control this court. And we're going to continue to pressure. And the key, again, is critical mass, exposure to the people. And that will happen either all on its own.
That is the key.
Yeah,
Critical mass.
it's going to happen either all on its own, or it's going to happen because the president pays attention to us, presses the issue, gives us our prosecutors, and then critical mass will happen that way.
Look at
There's a couple of ways it could happen.
The other way this can happen is grassroots. There's nothing to stop a county from taking its county government back. The sheriff, they're dead afraid of sheriff. He's a common law top officer. He's the highest officer, bar any federal DEA, all this baloney. They come in. Nobody can shut the sheriff down. So if you get a sheriff that understands the Constitution, he can also run an indictment, by the way. He can take our indictment and run it. You know what I'm saying? He can assemble a grand jury. That's grassroots. Now, that's going to, but you can't expect the sheriff to do it by himself. He's going to need the county. You're going to have to, the people are going to have to fix their county. They're going to have to elect a constitutional sheriff. They're going to have to make sure that their prosecutor understands common law and that he understands who the sheriff is, so that he can run those cases, or the people will run them. So this can absolutely happen on a grassroots, county by county level. Also, it doesn't have to come from the president. I think it should be coming from both sides at once. The death of a thousand cuts. That's where you are now. Chrisanne Hall, she likes grassroots. Well, we are grassroots. And look at, people got to get up from in front of the television, and they got to start paying attention to what's going on, and they need to get involved in their local government, because this whole premise that the federal runs everything, it's the most powerful government is your local government. If the local government said no, that would have been the end of the story. Like I said earlier, the federal government has no place to rest its foot if the county does not invite them in. If you don't invite them in, they have no standing to be there in the first place. And so we're our own worst enemies in that respect. So we're absolutely grassroots, because if you're willing to take your county back and you want to do it county by county, and we can indict in a county, we can even indict the president if it's an issue that's in that county. You understand? The sheriff can arrest the president in his county.
My definition of critical mass is grassroots. I thought that's one of the same thing. Maybe you have a different definition, but when I talk critical mass,
that is it. That is exactly what we're looking for. Look at, we have tens of thousands of people that come to our website, for perhaps hundreds of thousands. So we've got, we rate pretty high in the Google Analytics. And we've got over 6,000 members, okay, people willing to step up and do something. We're very active. We've got leadership in every single state of this union. We have a seal. Every state has, come together as a unified state common law grand jury in whatever state they're in. Okay, they've come together to do that. They've got a seal, and they also have an address. They're registered with us. And we've come together as a whole nation. All 50 states have come together and to agree upon the unified United States common law grand jury. And the purpose of the unified United States common law grand jury is only to deal with subversion against the United States of America, against the people, and against the Constitution. So that's what we're here for. And until that is actually defeated, until we deal with all of these subverts, we're not going to be able to do anything on a local level. Meanwhile, we are building administrations for the grand jury and for the trial jury, those who will call for the grand jury or the trial jury within a county. We're building a group of 4 people for every county who will become administrators, to take the job away from the judge and away from the prosecutor, who go in and taint the juries. The prosecutor, he can indict a ham sandwich after all. Look at that guy that was down in New York City that they killed, that big heavyset guy, for a code violation, cigarettes. They ended up killing this guy. And the prosecutor spent hours end on end with the grand jury until he got the grand jury to agree not to indict. Okay. And so they controlled the grand jury. So no indictment came out. We sent an indictment in early on, and of course that was ignored. But nevertheless, it sits in our case, and it's going to be applied at some point in time against these cops that killed this guy. But the bottom line here, again, gets back to the people getting together as one. We are coming in as the sureties of peace. That brings us to the Magna Carta, which is set to, and remember, the Magna Carta is the first grand jury that came together. 25 came together and decided to end the tyranny. And they claim themselves to be the sureties of peace, that they will do whatever's necessary to reinstate someone back to their, whatever their condition was before they would assault it or beat up or whatever by the existing government. And so that's the purpose of the sureties of peace. So look at when the when the federal courts come against an individual, you'll see the United States versus whoever it is. When the state courts go up against someone, this is the people against whoever it is, okay, in a court case. Well, in both cases, they're using the people's good name to run cases that benefit the elite or the
Mhm.
status quo, and they go in there and they bring in a kangaroo court in the name of the people. We're taking that back, and we are coming in as we the people, the sureties of peace, in the coming in as the grand jury. We're making the accusations and bringing the case right into the court. We need a prosecutor to prosecute, of course, and we need a referee, which is the magistrate, just to administrate the court. We're pressing now the administration. We got two defaults. We have a default against the clerk who charged us money for justice. They wanted $400. We refused to pay. They wanted it, so we had to give it to them. So they charged us money for justice. That's a crime. Okay, so we went after that person. They defaulted. We also went after the governor I mentioned earlier and the legislator on the gun laws. They defaulted. Now we're writing the default papers and we're sending it into the administrator of the court, the magistrate, and we're expecting him to sign it. Okay, and if he doesn't, he's
So
stuck.
what happened?
He's stuck now because that's
What
a
happens
process.
if they ignore you?